What is an issue today is people who espouse views they don't really believe in. Tom Tanuki was talking a little bit, touched slightly on this, sort of on a obtuse way, and in my Facebook post, and I think that's one of the things that bedevils modern discourse. Um, People just saying things they don't really believe. I'd say it's definitely on the right, the MAGA right. That awful woman, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's on InfoWars several times, I don't think she really believes anything she says. She talks about vaccines and vaccine mandates, and then she has Pfizer shares. She's a very rich person, repulsive in every way. Sounds misogynist again, just truly repulsive person. And but you see that on Trump, in the Trump era, whether he really believes anything he says, it's just um, sort of tribalism all the way down. But I suppose on the left, or what you call the left, self-described left, um, you know, do people really believe that male to female trans women are really women? Do they believe that, or are they just going along with it? I don't know. Does anyone believe that? Truly, in their heart of hearts, is that a genuinely held belief? Or is something else going on? I can't get inside their heads. And I don't think anyone who's... does anyone really believe the male to female trans should play women's sport, go into women's bathrooms, or be in women's prisons? It just seems irrational to believe that they genuinely believe that. Maybe some do. Um, and there's also an issue of ethnic and racial politics. It's had a little bit of to do with Jihadi Will, and not far from the Lakemba, Punchbowl, Bankstown area where all the Muslims are, a lot of Africans, Middle Eastern, is Newtown. It's a little bit difficult to get there via public transport. It's not that far away. And it's a little bit unusual. I don't think these people genuinely believe that. I don't think they do. But do they believe the white people, and it's mostly white people in Newtown, do they genuinely believe in multiracialism and multi-ethnic society, multiculturalism? I didn't mind going into Newtown. I did a few times to Dendy. Where we live closer to the train line. That was a bit easier. I quite liked it. I didn't mind it. Sort of more university students. Very bougie place, sort of. My mother used to live there with my aunt a long time ago. A long, long time ago. A very different place now. And very white. Very white. A few Indians, a few sort of East Asians, but probably 95% white, just walking the streets there. And it was just completely different, like completely different to Seven Hills and Blacktown. Westmead, Parramatta, a very different situation there. But Newtown is sort of more the urban middle class progressives, very gentrified in the last 25, 30 years. But it's still mostly white. And a lot of people there that wave their Aboriginal flags. See a few Aborigines on the train station. A few drinking beer. Sort of, I gave one woman sort of $2, and that was interesting. but very white. And so they do believe, they say they believe in multiracialism, multiculturalism, multi-ethnic society. All the Greens voters and sort of the left-leaning Labor voters in that Newtown area, inner west, gentrified, they would all say that. But they don't live amongst other races and other ethnicities and other religious groups. They don't. They talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. And I say this because I think there's actually evidence of this. Aborigines in Redfern, Everleigh Street was the place where they were. A lot of people don't really understand what Redfern was like. I had an aunt living there, a big housing commission block, and it was not Aborigines, not an Aboriginal place at all. Few black fellas around sort of the housing department places there, but it's all just one street, Everleigh Street. It was rebuilt in the late 70s, and as a housing project, quite nice places in the early 80s. But the blacks there sort of trashed the place. A lot of big drug problem, very bad drug problem. Late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of meth. They were getting into ice. It's really bad there, very dangerous place to be for anyone. And it was a bit of a drama because that was when Redfern was being gentrified. A lot of urban middle class people moving in. And what did all these green voting, very progressive, very open minded, very tolerant, ethnic loving people did? What happened there? Well, what happened was the blacks were moved out. And that was shut down. And Everleigh Street, a lot of them were moved back to Wilcannia, Tibooburra, all the places, Dubbo, where the blacks live. And so all of these very things for Aboriginal rights, people who love Aboriginal rights, now love Aborigines, they didn't love them enough to live amongst them though. So I think there's something there with people saying they don't believe the things they say. They don't live their values. They speak their values. They don't live their values. And I think that's a little bit of a warning sign for people. Jihadi Will, a white man turned Lebanese gangster, out there at a punch bowl. And, there's a bit of an idea that a lot of people are on your side, and a lot of the Muslims are under the impression, because they have deep state support, the CIA, MI6 are using Muslims and jihadis as a weapon. We've seen that all around the world. And they think maybe because the state is on their side, the deep state, that's borne out in the general population. But I've got to tell you, that's a misapprehension. And I think they need a reality check. And there's a lot of people more like me who are not big fans of Islam. And they need a bit of a reality check to think, the deep state support and some politicians that get up and talk about how they love Muslims, they don't really believe that. And if there's a little bit of a drama, a little bit of a global economic collapse and lots of violence, interethnic, interreligious violence, they might be better prepared if they understand, if they had a reality check from me, that they're not very popular in amongst the general population. It's very thin on the surface. It's at the top level support, but underneath a lot of indifference and probably a lot of hostility. So I wouldn't be getting too bombastic. A lot of the Muslims have got the wrong idea of how the general population thinks, and they'd be well advised maybe to be pull their heads in a little bit and maybe just think, well, maybe we're not on such a good wicket here. When the CIA and ASIO and MI6 are not going to come to your rescue, so I think they should just tone it down a little bit and behave a little bit better. People like Jihadi Will sort of just take it on the chin and be a little bit more respectful to the majority of the population, because things might take a turn for the worst and it's going to get very ugly. Possibly, probably not here, but probably more in Europe, Sweden, Belgium, France. France is heading towards fascism very close. There'll be another fascist in the next election. They'll all go downhill. And a lot of these nasty people, the white devils that live in Europe, the Swedes and the Belgians, the English, the worst of all. I said the Swedes are the worst of all, but England is truly a barbaric place, and they're going to get pretty violent. The Gammons over there, very violent, sort of meat-headed football hooligan culture in Britain, in England. The English, leave the Scots out of it. And things could turn a little nasty. And it could be less nasty if they're a little bit prepared and maybe just calm down a little bit. Calm their tits and maybe not provoke people that don't like them very much. And it's good that I'm up front. I'm up front with Muslims. Get on very well with sort of Muslims. I gave a woman, paid a bus fare, hijabi, many years ago, and she gave it back. And because she only had a $20 note, a $50 note, now it's very nice. Don't get it off the white Australians, the white devils. White people are probably, yeah, well, you know, white trash in Australia. Australia, very uncivilized, uncultured, barbaric, sort of degenerate white population. Just don't really, I don't want to live amongst the whiteys again. Majority whiteys, don't want to live in honky town. Prefer the Asians generally. So yeah. So the point, I think, that the general point is these people talk about how much they love the ethnics and love the blacks. In the inner city, these Green voters, I don't think they're genuine. They're not your friend because they don't want to live amongst you. Those people in there don't go into... How many of those white people, these white middle-class progressive university-educated people, go into Blacktown or Bankstown or Liverpool, where all the ethnics live? They don't go out there, and there's a reason they don't go out there, because they don't really like you that much. Underneath the surface, they don't really... Look, I mean, how many in the US? Yeah, everyone gets down their knee, get the kente cloth out, and for St. George Floyd, great man, model citizen, and they don't really care about the blacks, the black gangsters killing each other. Yeah, they don't really care that much about blacks. Got to pretend to care. Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden do not care about black people. Just get a grip. Understand what the real motivations of people are, and people do not give their true opinions anymore, on the right or the left, the MAGA crazies, or your inner urban progressive types. There's no genuine belief there. Very few express them. I do. And you should be a little bit appreciative of that. Because I'm just upfront. You can call me all the sorts of things that you like. Call me a bigot or call me a white supremacist. Andy Fleming, I think, did that, and he's really should hear my stuff about the Europeans. So I'm very much not that. And people say anti-Semite and conspiracy theorist and Holocaust denier and bigot and racist and all sorts of things that I've been called, but I'm upfront. I'm frank and upfront. And I'm probably less of a danger, perhaps, than these people who say they love you, but don't really. They just saying it. It's yeah, it's not genuine. I don't think they are. They are not genuine, in my opinion, and that sort of bedevils the modern age. A complete uh, break with what's believed and what's simply said, simply for the sake of it. And so I'm just going to say that I should be a little bit appreciated because you know where you stand with me. And that says for everyone, the Antifa guys, I give an honest opinion. See, Tom Tanuki needs everyone and gets into the comments, his Facebook and YouTube, say, you're great, Tom. You're so funny. You're brilliant. No, you're not funny, Tom. It's not funny. It's not good stuff. I'm funny. I am funny. I am a very funny person in more ways than one. But it's genuine comedy, genuinely funny, and he just doesn't have the knack. You need the knack. Not everyone can do comedy. Even if you're just a bit of a smart aleck, you can't do comedy. And my stuff is very good. What I've put out, there's no false modesty there. And I'm genuinely a funnier person than Tom Tanuki. I do think he's a solid writer, but not a brilliant one. Certainly not in the elite category. So he needs a little bit of honest appraisal and criticism from outside the little Antifa bubble that he lives in to sort of maybe set him right about the quality of his work. And I think Jihadi Will needs to know. He needs to know that maybe he doesn't have many friends outside the deep state, and the Muslims don't. And they could pay a heavy price for that in the future if things go really bad. But if they sort of be a bit more like less Sunni and more Ahmadi, be a bit more sort of congenial to the host populations, they will have an easier time of it. But I think the seeds have already been sown. You sow the wind and reap the whirlwind. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of trouble for the Muslims in Europe. And something that they've probably brought on themselves. But that's not really my problem. I don't really care anyway. I hate the Europeans. I don't have any time for the invaders. And well, it's all shit. Putin's bad. Ukraine's bad. The English are bad. The French are bad. The Germans are bad. Europe is indefensible, as Ames Césaire, great African thinker, he said about 50 years ago. He said, Europe is not defensible, and that's really sums it up in one phrase. And it really is a benighted, just a cursed continent. And I need to get that out on again. I took the other video down. The Europeans need to know that they are trouble, and they are troublemakers, semi-barbarous people, just the worst place imaginable. And I have no time for it. I have no time for Islam or Abrahamic religions. I don't mind Hindus. I get on okay with Hindus, but not Hindutva. There's other lot, Modi's an idiot, gibbering idiot. And it's just awful. Everything's awful everywhere. So I don't know what the future holds. It doesn't look very good for the 2020s. But if things go to shit and there's no nuclear devastation, no nuclear wipeout like Dolan-esque, John Dolan, very interesting anti-human piece that, and anti-life. Very Schopenhauerian. Abu al-Murray, the great man, he's another one, similar to Schopenhauer. You should get a hold of him. Maybe Abu al-Awasi. Jihadi Will would be better off reading Abu al-Murray and instead of the Quran. Muhammad, the sick, sick dog, sick false prophet, as the great man Abu Maslier said. Melier, the great man, the greatest man probably of all time, the greatest thinker of all time, the greatest philosopher of all time. Page 49 of the Shreve. And he says, false prophet, the false prophet Muhammad. And that's Islamophobic if you like. But it is a huckster, disgusting, perverted, sick, and his dirty, sick, filthy, depraved cult. Evil, the most evil ideology of all time, undoubtedly. And with the other two Abrahamic religions just behind it. So that's it. I've had my say on Europe and Tom Tanuki and Jihadi Will. Read Melier, mate. Read the Testament, and you might grow a little bit of a brain and understand the world a bit better. And you might sort of save yourself a little bit of trouble.